Were Roman houses really dank, stuffy, and hot all the time? Or did they have air conditioning? What about an attached garage for the carts and wagons? How big were their front yards and backyards too? Did they all have a great pool? How about a hot tub? These and other questions will be answered right after this. I'm Professor Jerome Arkenberg, and I've been teaching a wide variety of history courses at colleges across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the Roman Domus, or house, who lived in the single-family Domae, which is the plural of Domus, how these Domae were laid out, and the various rooms in a Roman Domus, their name and function. At the end, I'll have the wrap-up quote on this video. But first, make sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, and that little bell thingy, so I continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. A single-family house, or domus, or domae, as I said, which is the plural, were actually quite rare in Roman towns, but were largely reserved for the very wealthy upper classes. And you see depictions, cutaway depictions of them here. The Romans, like the Greeks, built courtyard domi, but largely reserved them for sites devoid of insulae, the Roman apartment house, where one's neighbors would be either another domus or your house occupied the entire block. We see it here, for example, the Villa Boscoriale in Pompeii and the Villa of the Papyri in Pompeii, which was the model for the J. Paul Getty Museum in Malibu, California. This was for privacy reasons, as if your domus shared a party wall with an insula. For example, here, the house of Caecilius Jucundus in an insulae block, that's his house right here, and the rest of it is shared by other insulae. If you shared this party wall with an insula, the tenants in the latter, because the insulae were 4 or 5, maybe 6 stories high, could too easily look down and into your house, or at least your courtyard, and see pretty much everything. Where your domus did share a party wall with one or more insulae, the Romans adopted the Skywell model, somewhat similar to the Greek herdrum style, where the courtyards were either significantly cut down so they could be more easily roofed over or eliminated entirely, in favor of an atrium with a small skywell in the roof. In other words, a roof opening still being required for proper cooling and ventilation, with an impluvium or pool to collect and store rainwater directly below the skywell. So, for example, here is the skywell. It's this part up here. This would have been the impluvium. The rest is all roofed over. And again, the impluvium, skywell. Same thing, little tiny skywell right here. Same thing here. So, with your skywell house, your insulae dwelling neighbors could rarely see inside your domus, as the only opening was a small skywell, which you see here also I just made it a bit too dark. And any interior visible, even from that, tended to be dark, as I said, due to the lack of sunlight penetrating the house from it. Ingenious. Even if it did cut down the light available to the inside, though the height of the insulae tended to do that to your domus anyway. Otherwise, the domi followed a peristyle plan, making it a bit of a fusion between the peristyle and the herdrum style of the Greek house, often with 2 courtyards or perhaps 2 skywells, as the case may be, as you see in these pictures here and these floor plans. Either or both with colonnaded walkways around them. Unlike Greek houses, where the entrance was often, if not usually, big enough to drive a cart and team through it, the entrance into a Roman house, considering any courtyard or skywell, the atrium, was not a kind of farm-like working area, is more the typical house door of today, with locks. Except, and you see it here, inaccurately done, that these doors uniformly swung outwards, not inwards as the modern European American house does. So the doors would swing outwards and guarded by a slave, usually some big burly muscular slave. And often not really any door knock. You'd come by and sort of smack it with your foot. Well, you don't kick it. You're not trying to smash it in. You sort of knock on it. It would be easier to knock on it with your hand, but instead they use their feet. Once past the door, let in by the guardian slave, you would find yourself in an entrance hall, or vestibulum. And you see the vestibulum here. These would lead directly into the focal point of the house, the atrium, as I said. Unlike the Greek house, the Roman house did not have an andron, a room where solely the men of the house could meet, talk, dine, and party with men not part of the family, where the only women allowed would have been dancers, entertainers, or prostitutes, and not the women of the family. Largely because Rome, as described elsewhere in another video, was not nearly as patriarchal as Greece. They were patriarchal, but not nearly as bad. In Skywell-style domi, the atrium, again shown here, various depictions, was a location of the important skywell, which allowed existing sunlight into the house while also allowing hot air from the rooms around it to escape upward via the skywell. The atrium also, as mentioned, had an impluvium, or water pool, usually built of marble, directly below the skywell, where rainwater could collect when it rained instead of flooding the entire house. You see this in this very nice depiction here. Of course, the skywell, here's your impluvium, you see the rain coming down. And again, here is this reconstruction. This case, this is a bit shallow here. Here is probably a bit more like it. This served primarily as a water reservoir for the family. It was not meant, as may be shown here, as a bathing or swimming pool or even a hot tub. Which is not to say that children or an occasional adult never took a dip in it, but it's primarily a water reservoir. The impluvium also served to humidify the domus, important especially in the hot, dry summer months. While, of course, as I mentioned, in time of drought, the collected water would come in mighty handy. Again, these impluviums would not be terribly shallow. They may be anywhere from 12 to 18 feet deep to collect as much water as possible. The atrium is also where the family had its Lararium, its altar to the family gods, and its lares and penates. More on that in another video. And here the head of the family would make daily sacrifice, libation, and prayer. This is the Lararium. Here you see it again here in this one. And this one, hard to see, but it's this thing right here. Connected to the atrium, directly or by passageways, which the Romans called fauces, fauci in modern Italian, would be all the other rooms of the house. So bedrooms, as you see here, or cubiculae, singular being cubiculum, where a host might also entertain business associates. Though if a domus had, as it often did, a second story, the cubiculae would be located on the second floor, and strange men would not be let up there. An office, or tablinum, for the owner of the house. And again, you see it here. Usually located directly opposite the main entrance, with its back opening directly onto the rear peristylium, which again you can see. Here's the rear peristylium here, 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 and here. Often this was the only way through the tablinum into the rear of the house. A bit of a guard, you might say, in the rest of the house. A dining room, or triclinium, again shown here, with normally 3 couches, 2 people to a couch, set up on which to recline and eat, and they were slightly tilted away from the food table, which is not shown here, but is very nicely shown here. Notice they are slightly tilted away. These would have been arranged around a low table, here, here, or here. You can maybe see it here, on which the food would be placed, not wine, that was held and served by a waiting slave. The fourth or open side, this part here, here, and here, would be facing the entrance of the room to allow easy food service by slaves coming from the kitchen. Though, during the time of the Republic, women did not recline on couches, but sat upright in chairs. The only woman who would have reclined on a couch next to a man during the Republic would have been a prostitute. Many domi contain more than one triclinium, so as to entertain very many guests, including in the homes of the very, very wealthy, perhaps one large enough to seat 20 people, in other words, 10 couches, plus perhaps smaller ones for more intimate or family-only dining. Again, you see it very nicely here, how the couch is tilted with the entertainers. This one is a bit outside. And again, you can see men and women reclining together. Back of the domus, off the atrium, was another courtyard, the Peristylium, or perhaps another atrium with a skywell if the domus shared a party wall with insulae. Again, normally colonnaded, as you see here, with bushes, flowers, herbal plants. Remember, unlike the Greek courtyard, which did not want any plants or trees, bushes, flowers in it, the Romans thought of it differently. Around this back courtyard or atrium would be more rooms, perhaps a dedicated altar to a significant god, bathing rooms, the kitchen or Culina, and a covered, if open-air, triclinium used for dining in the open during the hot summer, in an effort to maybe catch a breeze or two. The kitchen, or Culina, as you see here, was usually cut off from the light of the atrium or peristylium, and so was normally a bit too dark, also poorly ventilated. Which was okay because in the Roman mind, this is where the slaves worked and who cares. Now, unlike Greek houses, where cooking was done over a central hearth, The Romans had a masonry stove, which is what you see here. This would have been sort of the stove, also depicted in this reconstruction here. About table height, wherein charcoals or wood, if you want that smoky flavor, could be placed and lit, heating the entire thing, and pots suspended from tripods hanging over it, or just simply chains, as shown here. And you would raise and lower the pots to regulate the cooking temperature, and gridirons, which is kind of shown here, for pans. Metal grills, or Craticula, could be placed directly on this stove or over an open flame for grilling meat, fish, fowl, or vegetables, while roasting was done on spits over open fires turned repetitively by slaves. Truly thankless job. And again, this is where the cooking would have been done here. Again, here, seems to have burned the wall a bit. Now, this one is a bit interesting. See, this is the workstation and where everything is cooked. This thing right here is the toilet, the latrine. You just hike up she'd hike up her tunic and just go, and into a large pit, which would be cleared out once or twice a year. Ew. Unlike the Greeks, who used a kind of earthenware Dutch oven, you might call it, for baking directly on a hearth, the Romans used the Near Eastern Beehive oven, which you see here, made of clay and tiles with an opening in front for ventilation. Now, charcoal or wood would be placed inside. Normally, it actually is not placed here. It's actually placed directly here, as it's shown here, and directly in here. And then once it is fully heated, and this area is all super hot, the ashes would be raked out, which is what he's doing here. And then you could put bread or whatever you want to bake placed inside, kind of like a modern pizza oven. And then you would shut the door here, shut the front entrance to keep the heat in. There were no separate slave quarters, as slaves normally slept outside their master's doors at night to be available to serve them. Give me a drink of water, give me some wine, whatever. But also to protect. Everybody wants to gain entrance to the room, they're going to have to walk over the sleeping slave. And hopefully you'd make it a rather burly big slave, so it would be more likely to trip. So the slave at your front door, your bedroom door, you might say, is kind of a burglar and smoke alarm in one. I do feel sorry for the slave who thus has to sleep on the floor. There were also normally shops not connected to the living area facing the street. So this is more common in an insula, but even in a regular domus, it wasn't unknown, which would bring in some rental income for the owners. The wrap-up quote. I built this house, as you know. It was a shack. Now it's a temple. It has 4 dining rooms, 20 bedrooms, 2 marble colonnades, an upstairs dining room, a bedroom in which I sleep, a suite of rooms for this viper here, a really nice cubicle for the doorman, and many guest rooms. Petronius, 50 AD. Let me know what you think of this quote in the comment section below. Also, what you liked about this video, and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos and that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.